Walter, take Moses and 10 men to fetch us gunpowder and firearms from the supply tent. Get as much as you can carry. Levi barks orders to us, unfazed by the discordant panic that swirls all around. Dazed Calican soldiers, having been woken abruptly from their dreams, pour from their tents to meet the threat on the outer trenches. Men slip on man-made armors, grab mean-looking repeaters from racks, and dig greedy hands into barrels of bullets. They scatter about, tripping over each other to find their gear, swearing and cursing as they slide around in the mud. All the while, the drums pound out a beat that has become familiar. The Calicans are caught unprepared, and the fear shows itself in the eyes of the enlisted men. In the middle distance, an officer screams at a dozen soldiers. "Divert the 16-mark guns on the inner trench to the outer!" The rest of his instruction is lost to the din of war as cannon fire from the advancing Senecans lights up the sky like fireworks. The flashes highlight Levi, turning his pale skin almost white for a moment. Watching him is hypnotic, like a conductor leading his symphony. He twists, turns, and points, telling each of us what's expected of us if we are to survive the night. There's a moment where I forget myself and feel more like an observer during a historic moment. The battle howls, my heart beats faster, and I'm surprised to find myself not dreading the coming battle, but anticipating it with an anxious excitement. This madness will be the last of it if we can live through the night. "I'm not leaving you, Levi," says Walter, puffing out his chest. "Send Boots, the errand boy, for the supplies. Let you and I fight side by side." "You know better than to question me," Levi hisses in response. "There are 4 bloody reavers loose in the camp, and you're the only one that can protect the men while they loot that tent." The two share a look I can't quite decipher before Levi nods to him and says, "Use it. Rendezvous at the meeting point." The rest of Group 13 look around at each other, and I take a little comfort in knowing that I'm not the only one puzzled by the exchange. Walter finally relents, his body relaxes, and he nods. "All right, Levi. Moses, you're with me. Nolan and Oly, I need you on my heels. We're going there," Levi says and points away from the battle to the outer trenches and the hilltop city of Somerset. The watchfires on her ramparts haven't dimmed, and I can just barely make out some men in the towers who peer out over the battlefield. What are the Somersetters thinking, seeing hope arrive on the horizon for the first time in weeks? Levi snaps me out of my contemplation by drawing Oly and me in to issue his instructions quietly. "The 3 of us are going first to No Man's Land to relieve some dead Senecans of their uniforms and whatever weapons we can find." Seeing the horses makes me realize we have no way of corralling those we didn't shackle. "What are we gonna do about the horses that were supposed to be for us? They're all gone," I say. Levi acknowledges me with a hand to indicate he's going to explain. Then he calls over the remaining members of Group 13 who await their assignments like dutiful schoolchildren. "Warwick, get one of the lanterns from the guards I killed and bring it here." A sudden feeling of claustrophobia grips my chest. This is taking too long. How can he be so calm about this? What if someone stumbles upon us? We're so close to the mass of crying or dead horses. All it will take is one stray Calican walking the wrong direction and we'll be caught. As the lantern illuminates Levi's pronounced cheekbones, I look into his eyes and see a man driven by determination. He grabs the lantern, fraught as it is with hairline cracks in the glass from its fall, and places it on the soggy ground as he kneels. He draws a large, imperfect circle with his finger in the mud. "These are the outer trenches." The whole of Group 13 gathers around him like a storm building strength. All eyes follow his finger to another circle, this one smaller and placed inside the larger one. "These are the inner trenches." He picks up a large clump of mud and dumps it in the center of the 2 circles. "This is Somerset. That is our salvation. They have the horses and, better than that, the distraction we need to escape." A current of hope courses through our hearts as Levi continues. "Momentum is the key here. If we can convince the Senecan army from within the walls of that fortress to attack, then the Calicans will be fighting a battle on 2 fronts. They'll be so distracted that we can slip out. Here, to the west. He marks an X on the opposite side of the battle.
One thing, Levi.
Warwick is the first to speak.
How will you convince them to attack? And get the horses besides?
I share his skepticism, but a smile flashes across Levi's face. Nolan, Oly, and I will strip the bodies in no man's land and pretend we're an advanced unit from the attacking army. If all goes according to plan, we'll be riding among their cavalry, and the three of us can manage the rest. Warwick looks like he wants to argue more, but Levi places a firm hand on his shoulder to ground his mind in the moment. While Walter and his crew are getting arms and ammunition, you are going to take the rest of the men and get whatever other supplies you can manage from the depot here. We'll loop around with the horses to get Walter and his men with the gunpowder first, then meet you all at the X.
All right, Levi. What should we be grabbing?
Prioritize food that travels well and won't spoil quickly. We're going to need blankets and medical supplies, but I trust you to figure that out. Other questions? No one says anything. All of us are too shocked by the audacity of the plan to object or clarify. Boys, this is likely our only chance at freedom. We take this opportunity with both hands and wrestle it to the ground, yeah? Let's go. Move! He doesn't even wait for the group to respond before he starts toward the inner trenches. Oly and I follow in his wake, but I feel someone's eyes burning into the side of my head, so I turn and lock stares with Walter in the distance. He looks angry, but there's more to it than that. Is it jealousy, bitterness at some favoritism he thinks Levi shows me? I do my best to ignore the hatred I feel emanating from the man and focus instead on the task at hand. Oly, Levi, and I run toward no man's land. Levi? I begin hesitatingly. I can't help myself. Why not take more men for the approach on Somerset? How are we going to get the horses and make a distraction? We pass by empty tents and still smoldering campfires that are in the beginning stages of decay without anyone there to feed them. Never have I seen the camp so empty. Excitement grips me. This is happening. We're really doing this. Emily, Sarah, I'm coming. We're going to tell them we're part of a Senecan advanced scouting and infiltration unit, that we lost most of our numbers sneaking past the trenches. 3 survivors is a good number for that. Turn here. I act in accordance with Levi's directions and follow his figure as he cuts through a narrow passageway between tents. We pass empty tables and chairs set outside one of the mess halls. Something still worries me, though. Levi, do you know anything about Senecan military protocols? How are we going to sell this to them? Levi stops suddenly and swings around, jolting me with his finger in my sternum. Either you trust me to get you out of here or you don't, he says bluntly. If you do, then shut up and follow my lead. If you don't, then go join the battle in the outer trenches and die. Make your choice, Nolan. I won't ask again. His words hurt me. I try to affect a face that looks like I'm not bothered, but I am. Why do I care what he thinks about me? Oly says nothing when Levi continues on. Instead, he opts for a pat on my shoulder before hustling off after our leader. Muttering a curse under my breath, I follow. The inner trench comes within my sight moments after the scolding, and with it the walls of Somerset come into full view. Those within are stirring. Never have I seen so many lights line the curtain walls at night. It's just enough to provide a faint glow to the buildings behind the protective ramparts. Everything is laid out around a white-walled estate in the middle of the city, like clouds swelling around a mountain. It's too dark to see any of them in detail, but the suggestions of the men in the light are enough to know they exist. What if the trench guards shoot us before we can reach Somerset? Asks Oly, risking Levi's wrath. Levi stops, listens, and grabs Oly before ducking behind a tent, prompting me to follow. He holds his finger to his lips as more than a dozen Calican soldiers run past. We wait a moment until we're sure they're gone. They're diverting men from the inner trench to the outer, Levi muses. Finally, some good luck. We cross here. I can't help but notice he didn't answer Oly's question. Does he even know? Is he making this up as he goes? The inner trench is barren. Only a handful of Calicans man it, and they cast their gaze not toward the city but toward the battle that rages alongside the outer trench of the other side of the war camp. Levi's pride be damned. I'm doing this for Emily and Sarah. I don't care if he scolds me again. Someone needs to hold him accountable. Levi, how are we gonna get by, unseen? Instead of scolding me, he shocks me by gracing me with a smile. It's dark in the trench, but I can just make out the whites of his teeth and eyes. It is an animalistic smile, wild and dangerous. Simple, Nolan, he says, taking a deep breath. We run. With that, Levi takes 2 big steps and leaps across the trench, as easily as if he were hopping over a stream. Come on! He yells at us without looking back. Oly and I follow suit in tandem, sliding down into the inner trench since neither of us can fly across the entirety of the trench like Levi seems to be able to. As we scramble up the inner wall, hooking our hands and feet into gaps between logs meant to shore up the earthwork, we hear a voice from behind. Hey, what are you two doing? The Calicans remaining in the trench have spotted us. I pull myself up and over the top of the wall, mindful of the razor wire. Oly lags behind, so I grab the back of his shirt and pull. To my surprise, he is as light as a babe, and I pull him up and over the crown of the wall. Nolan, what the? Oly is interrupted by the clap of revolver fire. The Calicans' bullets fly over our heads as we enter the purgatorial waste between the inner trench and Somerset. What was once a verdant farm field has been churned up by the beast of war and is now a muddy morass of corpses, pooled water, and broken machines and carts. What if they chase after us? This is insanity. A bullet whizzes past and lodges itself in the rotting remains of a horse to my right. I trip over something and fall to the ground. A familiar buzzing fills my ears. Flies, thousands of them. They swarm across the carcass of the horse and the faces of the soldiers dead in the muck. The smell works its way into me, and for a moment I don't comprehend the words from Oly. Nolan, get up! We need to run! When I do so, I hear the Calicans firing blindly into the darkness after us, but they do not chase. Why bother with some escaping conscripts when they face an invading army? The small relief is welcome, but it is short-lived. Levi is nowhere to be seen. I reorient myself by reaching out toward Oly. He's still here. Levi? I chance a shout, but there is no response. Do I continue running? Do I look for our leader? Helplessness and dread grip me. Is he leaving us? Taking his chance to flee? I'm running toward a destination without any kind of plan on how to get there. The ground proves to be uneven as Oly and I stumble into a crater carved into the ground from repeated cannon fire. It must have been here a while, filled as it is with knee-deep water from the rains a few days ago. I hear a sudden, terrifying scream to my left. It's Oly. There's a body in here! Oly pats around for a lighter in his pocket and strikes it once he finds it. Miraculously, it sparks, revealing the crimson coat of a Senecan corpse lying face down in the water. The whole body seems to ripple with the water as we slosh around. There's movement at the corpse's head, a pair of rats that blend into the corpse's remaining hair. They quit gnawing on its ear and flee. Lights out, Oly. The voice in the darkness comes from Levi, who slides down into the cesspool with us. Oly complies, but before the light goes out, I can see a relief splash across his face at Levi's return. You'll give the Calicans a target to shoot at. Hand me the lighter. Levi stretches out his hand, and only when Oly has placed it there does he speak again. You two strip this body. I'll go find 2 more. Don't move until I come back for you. The decomposing husk of a human proves difficult to undress. As Oly and I fumble for the buttons of the overcoat, the smell of rot worms its way into our nostrils. You can have this guy's uniform, Oly, I say. No way, he says with his harshest whisper. We should find another. But before we've decided on who will wear the uniform, I hear my name called from outside the crater. I found 2 more over there, but they're back near the trench. Levi's eyes must be like those of an owl if he's able to see that far in the near total darkness. There's a moment where I think I've caught them glowing in the dark, but it proves to be a trick of the moonlight. Nolan, you're with me. Oly, get dressed and then stay here until I come get you, Levi says, but then he's off again, the very definition of momentum. I climb out of the crater as Oly curses his rotten luck. I manage to stay on Levi's tail, moving in an uncomfortable crouched position as he does. I'm on the precipice of standing when he stops and turns. Stay down, man, he says, at least until we have uniforms. The 2 bodies of the Senecans lay on top of one another like peacefully sleeping lovers. They're tranquil in a morbid way. I get the sense that their last moments were filled with great pain. It looks as if one crawled to the other to comfort him before he expired, showing a small kindness in a brutal world. These were men like me, men with families, jobs, men who offered thanks to Brother Autumn and reverence to Mother Spring. My anger at the Calicans burns. Levi disrupts their silent repose and flips one of them over as if it were a sack of flour. That one is you. He nods at the one he disrupted, but his gaze flips up sharply and he motions with his hand to get down. We press ourselves into the mud, and once again there's a second where I feel like I see his eyes glow. They looked like they were amber-hued, as though refracting some unseen light source in the darkness. He holds his steady hand out to me in the same position. Stay down. A searchlight from the city wall passes over our position. I hold my breath, and after what feels like an eternity, Levi whispers, "We're good." The Senecan uniform is tight across my neck, and not for the first time I find myself wondering what the point of having a sash draped across the shoulder attaching to the hip is. It's impractical and hinders movement. The golden shoulder tassels that are etched into my memory from the Senecan choking me to death feel heavier than they look. No wonder my countrymen are losing the war with Calico. The boots, too, I say to Levi when I see he hasn't included them in his livery. Yours aren't Senecan, it will blow our cover. Levi hesitates a moment but decides I'm right and sets about changing his boots. Senecans are not known for a keen fashion sense, as evinced by the tendency to wear long black boots that run up to the mid-thigh. We call them thigh highs, and they are standard issue for all soldiers, peacekeepers, and really anyone who makes their living on horseback. Of course, Calicans see this as more reminiscent of women's fashion, and I've heard more than a few soldiers in the trenches calling their enemies dancing girls and jeering at them from across no man's land. But Senecans tend not to be bothered by such things. We are a practical people, and high boots, while maybe not the height of comfort or style, prevent problems like trench foot. So these Calican dogs can jeer us all they want. At least we'll keep our feet after this damned war is done. Speaking of which, I stare down at my Swansons. After all the trouble I went through to win these back, am I really going to leave them behind in the darkness? It's my only connection to home, to Sarah and Emily. Damn it all. We still need to find some weapons to sell the ruse. What's the name of a famous Senecan general? Levi queries me in a low voice. Every so often, he glances back toward the unmanned trench. A sudden memory of an old man I was fitting a shoe for and who was berating me for not joining the war effort with General Gates comes to the forefront. General Gates, I say, but Levi isn't pleased. The vaunted hero of Seneca? Come on, even I know him, that's too obvious. Can you think of another? Racking my brain, I come up with nothing. I avoided the war for a reason, thus my knowledge of famous names in the military isn't a strong suit. I'm sorry, but that's the only one I know. I'm a cobbler, for season's sake, not a soldier. With one boot already on his right leg, Levi contorts his left so that he slips into it seamlessly. Damn it. General Gates is going to have to be. Let's just hope whoever is here in Somerset doesn't question it. Let's find Oly. He glances back over to the trench, and when the opportunity arises, he makes his way back to the crater where we left our third companion. I decide to keep my Swansons. It's pitch dark, and the ruined landscape of no man's land is featureless to my eyes. How is he remembering where everything is?
Look what I found.
Oly is not one for formal greetings. He holds some type of pole in his hands.
I think he was a flag bearer.
Levi looks thoughtfully toward Somerset for a moment. Take the flag. Did you find any weapons here? Oly shakes his head. Levi's gaze remains fixed on the city, and nothing will cause it to waver, not even the inhumane screams and rifle shots coming from the battle on the outer trench. We go now. Forget the weapons, we'll say that they were lost. Clock is ticking, come on. Crossing no man's land is different than I had anticipated. My mind conjures all kinds of ghouls that take the place of the dead scattered throughout. Myriad shades that will haunt this field for generations to come, that will rise at the fall of night and grab onto your feet as you pass them by. But the reality is even more terrifying. It's peaceful, like a gap that exists between moments where there's nothing but the heavy breaths resulting from a jog and the task at hand to fill my head. A part of me wants to stop here and just bask in the tranquility, but Levi spurs us onward. As we climb the hill that Somerset sits on, I'm shocked to see the devastation the Calicans have wreaked upon the outskirts of the city walls. When we first arrived here weeks ago, the city seemed to be thriving. It was an entire town of red-footed stucco buildings, surrounded by curtain walls of deep gray-white stone. But now, all I see is smashed stone, charred wood, and ruined lives. Farmhouses for families that had probably stood for hundreds of years now lie barren and stripped to the bone. Remnants of wood and brick are all that mark their memory. It happened so gradually that even though I saw them being dismantled by the constant shelling and assaults, it didn't hit me until now as I am standing among it, so close I could touch it. The walls of Somerset are full of a captivated audience. Each of the Senecan watchers is lit by a lantern or torch. They gaze out at the battle on the horizon, hoping desperately that their comrades can break the siege. The main gates of Somerset are built into the curtain walls that surround the hilltop. The walls provide a perfect contrast to the devastation surrounding the outer walls. While the land in front has been laid bare, with no trees or vegetation left to speak of, the walls have yet to be breached, and still stand proudly as a testament to the Senecans' defense. No Calican has set foot into the city since the start of the siege. I can't help but chuckle. Here we are, trying to do what an entire army could not. Upon passing a barricade of wooden spikes on the main road and setting our sights on the front gates, Levi asks Oly for the flag and then does something that seems easy and natural for a man of his confidence. Hail, Seneca! Hail, Somerset! General Gates calls for aid! He cries out, waving the flag fervently. Hail, Seneca! He laces his scream with desperation. If I did not know the ruse he's trying to sell, it would be believable. He waves the crumpled Senecan flag about chaotically. I had expected the outside of the front gate to be lined with guards, but it's empty. All the remaining men are behind the walls. 2 large wooden gates are all that keep us from the city. It makes me wonder how they've managed to hold off the Calicans for this long. Levi continues to shout up at the walls, even going as far as banging on the 2 behemoth doors. Hail, Seneca! General Gates sends word! His cries fall on deaf ears. The soldiers on the ramparts simply watch us like statues, with their guns pointed at us, unsure of what to do. I back up and look to the towers on either side of the gateway. It reminds me of the drawings I used to make for Emily, depicting the ancient castles of Ghent. I would draw pictures to help her visualize when signing was not enough. All that is missing from those pictures here is the moat and the drawbridge. The Somerset Gatehouse has been left open, and it and the left tower are empty as far as I can tell. The right tower is lit with lanterns, and I can see a figure peeking out over the edge. I yell to get his attention. "You there! Let us in before we're killed out here!" The figure shakes his head. "Then go get your damn superior officer, Private!" At that, the man rushes off, I know not to where. Was that a mistake? Levi, who continues to holler at the Senecans for disobeying a direct order and not letting us in, stops when I touch him on the shoulder. "Is there another way into the city?" I ask. "A backup plan if this doesn't work." He's curt in his response. "This will work." On command, we hear a number of voices on the other side of the doors, followed by a loud thud. The doors creak open at an agonizingly slow rate. On the other side lies either our death or our salvation.